Hello, soul family and divine beings. Welcome back to our YouTube channels. It's again me, Megma Hira, aka Ego.alchemist, and we have Kira FARR, Emerging Souls Oracle. And lovely seeing her face today and a bright smile again, like we are coming together each week and talking about all this new enclaves that we are opening up for the collective to explore, to embrace, and accept as a part of life. And this is the new human being, this is the new art, this is sharing and exploring tools together and identities that will define how we go on with our lives in the future. And so, welcome to Sharing My Magic. This is a coming out program for closeted light workers, and I'm super grateful for Kira for doing this with me. And today we are going to talk about the topic of divination.
Yeah, so divination, for those of you who haven't heard of that, it's a practice or multiple different practices that allow us to receive information from spirit or source or God, whatever you want to call it. Um, Receive messages, receive guidance, receive information about ourselves, our higher selves, the collective, and there are so many different ways to use divination. The most common would be, off the top of my head, things like tarot and oracle cards. Um, and the real main use for divination for specifically light workers is to receive information from spirit that we can then use to better the collective and to help heal ourselves and the collective. So, in a nutshell, divination is an energetic practice that allows us to receive guidance from our divine source, the divine source, whatever you want to call it. It's a personal experience for everyone. So, that is what divination is. And we each have our own preferences for divination and the types of stuff that we use. So we'll be sharing a little bit about the different types of divination and what we personally like to use.
Yeah, okay, at this point, like you absolutely very crisp manner, like you explained what divination is. It's an energetic practice because the information mostly that we receive are in the form of energy packets that we then interpret and translate into words and sentences and concepts. And in this shift that the collective is going right now, divination or channeling, which is just receiving information from your spirit guides without using other tools, has been the main, you know, thing or support behind making this shift, because none of these new concepts or ideas or acceptance and validity was available in the external world. This outside matrix was saying everything opposite to what we now have realized, and only by going within and receiving those guidance, trusting those guidance, and working on those channeled messages has led us to this enlightenment and revelations around what's in happening in our consciousness and how we can really tap into that shift. So divination is, or channeling is, a very very important source of information and wisdom for anyone, especially people who are embracing their spiritual qualities of life. And that's why today we decided to talk about it. So, what would be your favorite form of divination?
I love my cards. I really love my cards. I do enjoy like dabbling in things like wax readings and candle magic as well, which is very new for me, which is just pouring wax into water and seeing the message in the shape of the wax.
Yeah.
Runes is something I've also been interested in as well, but for me, also, I've really been enjoying the process of slowly understanding how to use my clairs, my dominant clairs. Um, so I have had messages from spirit about my future kind of come through my clairvoyant and claircognizant channels, that with clairsentience sort of being, feeling that confirmation for me. So I do like that as well. But I find that when I use my cards, I pull a story out, and it's so fun. I love it. It's an exciting process. It's a fun process. And there are so many different ways to read the cards, but I intuitively just put together a story, and it somehow makes sense. And I feel it resonates really deeply. And I also enjoy bonding with the energies of the different cards that I have. So I've got decks that are very feminine and soft and intuitive. I've got decks that have kind of like old witch energy, very like powerful feminine witch energy. I've got decks that are more in the divine masculine. Like I like to bond with the energies of those decks, and it's like they're kind of I'm working with them, not just using them as objects. It's like their energy is our energies can flow together. And also when I invite my spirit team in to send me messages through my clairs as I'm reading the cards, I can better intuitively feel the story out. So for me, tarot and oracle cards in a non-structured traditional way, that would be my favorite method of divination for myself, but also for other people.
Yes, yes, yes. And I absolutely love this, that the style of interpreting the messages or reading cards and getting channels is very unique to individual to individual. And more I talk to people and and ask them about their journey with receiving this kind of guidance and information, I see each of them have learned, okay, tarot is something like this, and that there are some basic principles and understanding of the elements and stuff. But then after getting a overview of that modality, there comes inevitably a point where you need to put in your own essence and your own creativity to get your own messages. And that's a beautiful process, and it builds so much trust within. And yeah, it's beautiful. And yes, I love tarots and oracle decks also, and the visual aspect of it, and
Yeah.
the small elements kind of popping out to tell you stories behind them. And the reading that you did for me, and you just talked about like a phoenix rising, and the next card was a full-blown phoenix on fire. And confirmations like that is always so exciting. Another a couple of methods that I use and like is fire gazing, and see what kind of messages and thoughts come in, and also automated writing. And that's one, like, that's kind of equivalent to me in the terms of when I do tarot, because it with practice I can absolutely allow the information to pass through me without filters. And when talking about filters, I think it's important to understand that when someone starts channeling or using divination tools in the beginning, there might be a lot of resistance, hesitance, and filters of your own perspectives, beliefs, and shadows that could uh, contaminate those messages coming through. But that's also a part of process. To make that better, you are encouraged to delve into more and more shadow work and clear out those shadows, make yourself a more clear energy, so that that light, that information can pass right through unadulterated.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because as you go along with it, if you do practice, if you start getting into divination, as you go along, you get more self aware and you start to, it's quite difficult sometimes to stay stuck in your shadows when you're self-aware and you're getting called out, and you know, like there are times when I'll do a reading and they don't hold back. They're like, the cards are like, this is what you need to hear. And I know exactly. And then my brain will do its thing. My ego will step in and I'm like, I can see you there. And so I have to work with those energies of what is contaminating the content and
Yeah.
blurring the messages, because yeah, it's our ego and our past experiences and all of that will sort of bleed into the reading. Like some people may have a reading where they're told that they're going to start to form wonderful friendships with people in the near future, or they're going to start a business, and then their ego goes, I've always wanted to start a business, but I can't do that. That's never going to happen. Or I had bad relationships in the past, so I can't have a balanced, harmonious connection ever again. So those are the types of things that can filter into the reading and really, you know, muddle the waters. So shadow work is really important, and divination can also shine the light on your what shadows you need to work on, so that shadow work is easier for you. And cleansing as well. Before you do a reading, get into a space, a headspace where you're clear headed. You're able to seek clarity from a space of it's more of an objective stance than a like you're able to see what is there without the haze. So smoke cleansing, sound cleansing, clearing your head beforehand, clearing your energy before doing the reading. I've gotten stuck in some patterns where I have been so obsessed with gaining information about my future that I would do like 100 readings a day, and like then I'd get confused because my ego would step in, and then I'd need clarity, and then I need clarity for the clarity, and it was a mess. So I decided, I was like, okay, I'm not doing a reading unless I'm like a little more stable and a little more clear and a little more energetically open and unbiased. So it's a really good point to bring up when you're working with divination tools and methods of divination in general. Like, don't let those things filter in and destruct what you're trying to, the message, because spirit does have a message for you, but so does your ego, which is telling you what's you need to work on. So take them both, separate them, and go from there.
Yeah, yeah. Like I started tarot just for myself to get to know myself better and get guidance for myself before I started doing it for other people. And that was a beautiful process to be up every morning and getting down the messages and see how they play out. And using tarot was one of my way to do shadow work as well, because they actually tell you where you can work right now, where you should work right now, because you can go, like you can be aware that you have 10 things to deal with within yourself and try to do that all at a once and get overwhelmed or discouraged and really drained. But my deck has helped me to really pinpoint what can I work on today, so that next day I can work on something else, and like that. And when I started first doing readings for others, I think one of the things that really I had to heal and work with is the mistrust and this belief that such profound knowledge and wisdom is flowing through me that is for another person that I don't even know. And yeah, at times I would be in the process of channeling and words are just coming out at from my mouth, and my ego is at the back. I'm like, what are you doing? What's happening? um, so yeah, I'm just putting this out because it can be a rocky ride at the beginning, and there is a lot of self-doubt and even surprises how well you can channel, and realizing all these things can get you it's okay to take it slow and keep trusting and keep practicing, and you will get better in no time. um what was I going to say? Anyway, I lost the other thought, but You can go ahead with what you have.
Yeah, I do think that does come into play when channeling with for other people. Like when I do my readings, I use a lot of the imagery as well. And a lot of the times there's doubled up imagery. Like with you, there was the double up with the phoenix, and some people it's a double up with a dragonfly or a cat. Um, the cards that are all very different types of cards, their imagery can sometimes they work together really harmoniously. They work together really well. And sometimes when receiving those messages, I do question where exactly I'm getting certain things from. Like I may hone in on one particular part of an image for some weird reason, and I'm like, and then I can pull a story out of that, and then I'm like, I have no idea. Even in some of my readings that I've done for people, I say, I'm like, I don't know if this is accurate, but there's this, and then it is accurate, and I still don't know where it's coming from, if it's coming from like mind, like it's just it's a mix between, I guess, like that inner knowing and that, but I'm still feeling it out as to where it's coming from. um and yeah, that's it's an interesting experience being able to tell someone a lot about their life that you have never met. And another thing with dabbling in divination, people may wonder like how exactly, like when do they start doing it? There's no precise time on your journey to start doing it. um, just pick what you feel drawn to, and when you go out and get your first deck, or you're given your first deck of cards, however you end up with one, just go with it. If you find yourself interested in flame gazing, as you said, go for it. Don't force yourself to do one type of divination because it's popular or because someone else recommends it. Um, and also, if you find that there's a particular type of divination that you just can't seem to crack the code on it, for me, that is flame gazing. Like I can't see anything in the flames, but I do enjoy using the wax to get a reading. So work with what you work with, like you don't have to be an expert or even remotely good at every single part of divination. Like there's pendulum boards, there's pendulums, um, there's animals and omens, there's past life regression is even divination, getting information from your past lives. There's all different types of things that you can utilize. Even astrology, like
Yeah.
astrology is information about yourself from the stars. Like that's pretty awesome, especially when it's accurate. So go with what you feel is right for you. And as for the timing, whenever you want, whenever you start. If you feel like you should hold off for whatever reason, hold off, but don't let yourself be cut off from that option. Just go with the flow, go with it, don't force it. You don't have to be a fully fledged psychic medium to do what you want to do. You don't have to see spirits. You don't have to even hear them. You can just feel them or get mental pictures. Or with automatic writing, you can just have a spiel out there that may just seem like creative writing or like it's coming from the imagination, but you might find that it's really not coming from your imagination, and eventually you'll learn to decipher what is an imagination type of thing and what is a channeled message. Also, I was going to say I've lost a thought as well. For those of you who struggle with intrusive thoughts, I want to put this in there because I myself struggle with intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts and channeled messages. So sometimes when you're meditating and you're like, oh, I really want to get like an image of this, and you see and you get an intrusive thought. The difference between an intrusive thought and a channeled message from spirit, the intrusive thought's not going to be a great thing. The channeled message is going to be more pleasant and peaceful and not something that's going to scare the crap out of you. So if you do experience intrusive thoughts, you aren't limited in how you can use divination or receive channeled messages. You may, for me, for example, I get a lot of mental images of animals as messages. So I get a lot of animals. There's always some sort of animal floating around, right? But my intrusive thoughts are also animals. But there is a big difference because the intrusive thoughts are quite scary and shocking, and the spirit guidance is a gentle entrance of an animal into my mind space. So if you suffer with intrusive thoughts, and when it comes to channeled messages, meditation types of stuff, you're still able to receive those messages. And that's the big difference that I find. And I just wanted to include that because for me, I felt very alone and very isolated because I didn't hear anyone else talking about intrusive thoughts when you're trying to be all peace and light and meditate and all that kind of stuff. So if you struggle with that, there's a little bit of advice there.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's important because I have experienced it too. And I think it's something that I was trying to convey when I was saying that when I first started doing readings for others, and while my channeling is coming out from my mouth and I'm giving them the messages, there is thoughts behind me like, you don't know what you're doing, or you are giving them false hopes and stuff, or false messages. A lot of things come up. And yeah, another thing that uh, I wanted to mention about the intrusive thoughts versus channeled messages from spirit is the channeled messages, yes, they will always feel better, more peaceful, gentle, like slipped into your awareness kind of thing, rather than a flash of shocking image or a concept that makes you cringe and closed up. This doesn't mean that spirit will never give you warnings or hard messages, or a scolding. Maybe the spirit give you that, but even those negative kind of messages will also be given you in a gentle way. So it doesn't mean that channel messages are always sparkles and rainbows and unicorns. They are pretty serious sometimes as well, but even the serious messages are given it feels like from your heart. It doesn't make you cringe and curl into a ball out of fear. So yeah, I wanted to mention that as well. And yeah, double down on the cleansing part before you get a message, because this instrument, the pineal gland, is always picking up, especially for people who have just started opening their pineal gland and practicing this clears and stuff. It's always picking up on substance and thoughts and stuff. And this is a mistake I personally did, is I did not take cleansing or centering and grounding seriously before I entered the reading for myself. And this was just in the beginning when I did it for myself. And like you said, I would be very confused. I would get conflicting messages and stuff because I did not clear up my energy before going into the reading. And yeah, since we have been talking about divination, this is another thing that I wanted to clear up for the audience. Is divination is, yes, information about your past, about yourself, and of the future, but the general understanding when they hear the term divination is like it's future and always predictive. It's not always like that. It can be about yourself and all the aspects that has been influencing your current state and therefore your past to the future. And it is very subjective to how you handle the present state of your energies and your affairs, that your future may or may not change. And I always like to remind people of that, and especially I work in that way. When I use divination tools and I channel messages, I always say this is your current state and what you're dealing with, and there may be a ton of past shadows and burdens or baggages that is contributing to this state. But if you stay on this path, this is where you will be going. If you make ABC changes or try to work with this, you can steer that direction in some other way. So that's how I work with people. Just wanted to mention that divination or any messages coming through divination is not always set in stone. It is more of a guideline for you to work with.
Yeah. We do still have free will as people. Sometimes you can receive information that's scary from a psychic medium or a channeled message from yourself or someone else. And when I say scary, I mean it can be anything from something that's like scary about your physical reality, but it could also be about your emotional reality. Some people are told that they're going to experience things that are going to make them more vulnerable and open up. And that's a great thing. But when you're coming from a place of fear and like, oh, I don't want to get hurt, I don't want to be vulnerable, that can be scary to hear from a psychic. Like they might think they're telling you. For me, I was told something about my future that I was like, oh, that's scary. And it wasn't I wasn't ever going to be in physical danger, but it was more of an emotional vulnerability type of fear. So you're but you'll still have free will, like you might receive a message that you are going to meet someone down the line that's going to bring up some triggers. That doesn't mean that you have to stay in their life forever. Like you can leave that situation or leave that relationship. That's just one example. Or you may be told that you potentially might go into this particular career path. You don't have to do that. You get free will when it comes to your life. Yeah, like there's stuff that you can just not do. So don't freak out about any particular messages that, you know, feel like they're trapping you in a box. And a lot of really good psychic mediums or readers or channelers, light workers, like people who do spread messages, what they do, a lot of great ones do, is they remind you of that. They remind you that you have free will, that this is based off of, you should follow your intuition. They give you that reassurance that, you are in control of where you're steering the ship. And you can do with the messages what you will.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, like we always say, take what resonates. The messages are designed to confirm what your higher self is already trying to tell you. And if something feels off, something that doesn't, sit with you, you can just drop it and not bother about it too much, and take what the parts that really speaks to your soul, and you think, yeah, there is something there that I need to now go within and meditate on and work with.
Yeah. So to add to what you were saying about using your intuition and that it should confirm to you what your higher self already knows, I find that's very much works with pendulums. So when I'm using a pendulum board and I've got the pendulum there, my hand isn't moving, but I feel as though I'm controlling it with my mind almost. Like it's a weird thing. I'll ask a question I'll always ask a confirmation question. So I'll ask something that I know the answer to, like, do I have a cat? And it'll say yes. Do I have 3 dogs? It'll say no, right? And then I get into what I really want to ask. And I find that with some questions, I intuitively feel it's going to go in a certain direction. It'll go in a certain direction, and then I've even tested it. I've then decided that I want it to say no, and it'll go no, it'll change direction. And then I get confused about if it's actually giving me a message or if I'm influencing it some way. So I think what that means for me is that when I ask a question and it goes in a direction, and then I feel that like syncing with my heart, it's like confirmation that it's going where my intuition already knows. So it's almost like, although my hand isn't moving, the pendulum goes where I suspect it to go. And because I suspect it's going to go there, that's my intuition saying, see, you kind of already knew the answer. Like you intuitively knew the answer to the question you're asking. And it's confirmation when the pendulum kind of goes in that direction. So that's like a very unusual thing that I sort of experience with pendulum work, because it's very different to, I don't get that with any other type of divination. So it's definitely supposed to confirm to you what you already know. And when you've got something that is not, you're not moving your hand, like there's no other way for it to be going in that direction. It's like, it's somehow syncing up to what I'm feeling. And that was confirmation for me that my intuition knows the answer to this question. The pendulum is going where I feel like it should be going. So yeah, it's definitely supposed to confirm, not necessarily confuse or make you freak out, or yeah, that's where the intuition part really comes in, and your intuition will heighten as you progress on your journey with divination.
Yep. And absolutely, this is like any skills. It gets better with practice, and the trust, the skills, the amount, and the clarity of messages you're receiving all improves as you give in more to the process. And this comes from both of our personal experiences. Um, like, I'm not sure about you, but I, growing up till my 20s, 25-year-old, I had no cultural influence of tarot cards and divination using pendulums on or stuff. Like, there are obviously stories about ancestors and previous generations being into that spiritual stuff, but not in a direct kind of way. And while switching and adapting a more spiritual lifestyle, there was so much resistance, so much limitations and boxes that you have to break through to get to a point where you confidently talk about these things and are able to explain the different nuances that you might be going through while you are doing this for yourself. Takes a lot of, experimentation, trials and errors, practice. But I think we just keep going back to it because it resonated so much to us. Because even within all that confusion and even sometimes fear and doubts, we felt that those messages were actually leading us somewhere. And this is divination, is the method of receiving these divine messages, is the primary tool, according to me, to connect with your inner guidance and inner wisdom, your inner guru, which is actually kind of the end goal or the goal of the spiritual path, to get that self revelation. So in today's video and talk, like Kira told us about so many cool modalities of divination, and one of them that I find fascinating is wax gazing, and I've never heard about that, and it's pretty cool. And I saw Kira do it for the first time in her Instagram story, and yeah, this is something that I would like to try for myself as well. So yeah, before we say bye, can you like tell us a little bit about the wax reading, because I think it will really fascinate a lot of people.
Yeah, so the wax divination was something I saw on TikTok by someone named Cass, and they are very much into paganism and pagan divination. They work with deities like Loki and Freya. So they poured wax into water and showed us on TikTok how to do that. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. This is something I can do at home because I have candles. So that was how I found it. And when I first tried it, at first there was that resistance because I didn't know much about it. I was like, I don't know what's going to come from this. And so I did my first pour, and the trick is to release your brain in terms of like that analytical, okay, quick, let me find a message here. Just look at it, let the message come. And I found sometimes there is no message, and I don't force it, but there have been messages for me. Once I got the shape of a bear, I saw a bear, and bears are one of my favorite animals, and I was able to resonate with that. And the spirit of the bear and what the bear represents. So, and then there have been times when I've seen stuff come up about the womb space, and stories about sort of like connected to childbirth and stuff like that, like through shapes like that. Like, and then from that, I'll pull sort of like a story out of that. So like the picture and the imagery is completely unique to the individual. So what I see, someone else would be like, I'm not seeing that at all. And it's like, that's completely fine. What do you see? That's the beauty of it. It's like whatever you see. And it's, you could have one wax pour that can be read by many people. So yeah, you can look at it from below, look at it from above, but it's like one message for whoever wants to look at it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. I connected when you talked about the analytical um, mind and trying to shut that out when you get messages. Yes, I think divination is a very feminine, flowy process, and it's more, yeah, there is no logic to it. Like if you cling to the logic, you will miss out the message most probably. And it's very important not to force it. Yeah, if there is no messages, it's fine, call it a day and get back to it another time. It's absolutely okay. The spirits may be busy somewhere. Yeah, the reason I wanted Kira to mention about wax reading is it just need a candle and water, something you must have at your home. So if you don't have a tarot deck yet and you're getting interested in trying all these different things, it's about getting messages from yourself and your higher self. So if you can stare at a tree and see messages in the wind and the leaves, if that's your thing. So I just wanted to put it out there. It doesn't have to look a certain way how you receive your messages. So go out there, try these different things that we mentioned today, and find your own cool stuff. Like come up with a new form of divination and share that with us, and that would be absolutely delightful. So thank you for joining us today, and we will see you again next week with another topic that we will discuss about sharing my magic. So thank you. Bye bye. Happy ascension.